Hello everybody, this is Zax399. I want you guys to take a look at this good looking fellow here, 66-year-old Doug Costello out of Indianapolis. Back in 2009, this guy sold a Brother black and white printer for $40 on Craigslist to this U.S. citizen from the Ukraine who came to the USA in 1987 and is now trying to collect more than $600,000 for emotional distress over a broken printer he bought. Yeah, that's right. He's requested that Costello, the seller of that printer, admit that he owes him more than $600,000 for the emotional distress and false advertising of a broken $40 printer back in 2009. That's no joke, people. I got the story coming up right after this. All right, welcome back, everybody. That's correct. This poor guy here, as you see him right here, this is Doug Costello of Indianapolis. Now, back in 2009, he sold a black and white Brother printer through Craigslist, and then I guess somebody ended up buying it from him, and he had to pay like shipping and handling fees to send it out. So it totaled about $75 with shipping and other costs, according to court records. So this guy is 66 years old, Doug Costello, and when he sold this black and white used printer on Craigslist, he had no idea that he was going to be entangled in a big civil lawsuit for the next 6.5 years of his life. So what happened is when he actually sold it to the buyer, Gersh Zovodnik, looks like Zovodnik, a 54-year-old Indianapolis man known to the legal community as a frequent lawsuit filer who also represents himself in court. The Indiana Supreme Court said he's a prolific, abusive litigant and has brought dozens of lawsuits against individuals and businesses, often asking astronomical damages. Most, according to all court records, involve online sales and transactions where he felt he got, scammed. Now, he's a native of the Ukraine, Zovodnik, and he moved to the States in 87 under a grant of political asylum. He sued Costello and accused him of falsely advertising a malfunctioning printer with missing parts and pocketing his money. Now, according to the complaint filed in a Marion Superior Court, Zovodnik tried to resolve the issue with Costello to no avail, leaving him with no other choice but to take legal action. Now, Zovodnik declined to speak with the Indianapolis Star, but in an earlier interview, he said his motivation for filing such lawsuits is simple: to seek justice from people who he said stole money from him. Now, what happened when he originally filed the lawsuit about the printer? He asked for the maximum damages allowed of $6,000. Now, he lost that lawsuit because he threw away the evidence. He threw away the printer. But when he lost that, he wasn't done. He filed another lawsuit in the Marion Superior Court where he requested damages for breach of contract, fraud, conversion, and deceptive advertising, and emotional distress. So the seller of the printer, Costello, this guy here, thought he was all done. But now he says he feels like he's been in the twilight zone. In 2010, Zovodnik sent Costello, who was also representing himself in the lawsuit, paperwork asking him to admit that he was liable for more than $30,000 this time for a breach of contract, fraud, and conversion. Now, the trial court dismissed the case, of course, and 26 other cases filed by Zovodnik, who appealed all those dismissals. And then, in 2012, they revived the lawsuit against Costello and sent the case back to a trial court, where it remained stagnant for another 9 months until its hearing was scheduled later that year. Now, Zovodnik also sent Costello 2 more requests for admissions One asked that Costello admit that he had conspired with a judge. Oh boy. So this guy here, Zavodnik, this punk, is asking Costello, sending him paperwork himself, asking Costello to admit that he conspired with a judge to preside over the case, and that now he was liable for not $6,000, not $30,000, but more than $300,000 now. Another one requested Costello to admit that he was liable for more than $600,000. So he sends these requests for admissions for Costello to admit that he's liable for almost $1 million for those two together. Now, Costello didn't respond to all three of the requests. He only responded to the $30,000 one, and evidently he only has 30 days to respond after he receives them. He didn't ask for an extension of time, as required by the state of Indiana trial rules, and so Costello admitted to the liabilities and damages by default. He also did not appear in the July 2013 hearing, according to court records. Man, I would think this lawsuit's so silly, especially after winning the first one. I don't know that I would appear in court either. It's just crazy. So the case overwhelmed him so much, Costello said, that he finally had to hire an attorney. And in the fall of 2013, Indianapolis attorney Chad Wirtz, who represents other defendants sued by Zavodnik, filed a motion to withdraw the admissions. The case lingers again, this time for more than a year, without any action, making any kind of action. So Wirtz said the case moved through several Marion County judges, many who didn't want any part of it. And Zavodnik sought to have a judge removed, and the Supreme Court appointed a special judge from Boone County, who finally in March of 2015, 6 years after Costello sold the printer, he actually ruled in favor of Zavodnik for a judgment of $30,044.07 for breach of contract. Is this just ridiculous or what? A $40 frickin' printer from 2009 on Craigslist, and this guy Zavodnik sitting over here filing lawsuits against everybody and everything, buying all kinds of broken crap or saying that it's broken and filing lawsuits against everybody. That's just how this guy is trying to make his money. You see this picture right here? This is Gersh Zavodnik posing in his room full of files. All these files everywhere are from all the lawsuits, all the BS lawsuits this guy is filing against everybody, trying to make a living off of these, what I would call scam, BS, frivolous lawsuits. And for him to be awarded $30,000 for a $40 printer, because this Costello guy isn't sending back all these admissions and returning all these admissions this guy's sending his way, is absolutely mind-boggling. Acknowledge the amount is seemingly high and the judgment may seem extreme for the breach of contract for a purchase of a printer, but he wrote that he's constrained by how the Supreme Court had previously interpreted the state trial rule, Rule 36, which sets a 30-day deadline for responding to these requests for admissions. So this guy just continues to send ridiculous admissions. Hey, man, you owe me $300,000. Hey, you owe me more than $600,000. I need you to admit to it. And because the guy doesn't return all these BS, by the state's law, he has 30-day deadline to respond. So Costello says, what kind of reality am I in now? Man, I feel bad for this guy. This guy has went through a freaking nightmare because of this freaking scam artist, loser punk. I suppose this guy will file a lawsuit against me now for calling him names in my video. But that's exactly what he is, and anybody who reads this story or who hears this story will know exactly what this guy is. This guy even knows what he is. You can go back to the Ukraine, buddy. Get your happy ass out of America is what I say. Reading this whole story pisses me off. I mean, this infuriates me. $40 printer and you're going to do this crap to a 66-year-old man. Costello, who owns a forensic accounting business, appealed the ruling on March 23rd. The appeals court issued a sharply worded 13-page opinion in his favor. The $30,000 in damages had no basis in reality. Thank God for that, Chief Judge Nancy Vajik wrote. At least somebody has common sense. Zavodnik misused the Indiana trial rule, which was meant to more quickly and efficiently reach a resolution, Vajik wrote, not to, to be a basis for some kind of ridiculous amount of money granted to him because him sending a request claiming $30,000, $300,000, and $600,000 in damages. And because this Costello didn't receive all of these and return them within 30 days, he's somehow eligible to collect $30,000 in damages? What a bunch of freaking steaming pile of crap. Zavodnik used the rule as a way to avoid such a resolution. Now, Costello was on a business trip in Ontario, Canada, when his attorney called him to tell him the news. He said he almost broke down while sitting at the diner that he didn't have to pay that $30,000. Man, there ought to be a lawsuit against this guy. This guy is a guy that needs to be sued for not only harassing this guy, the guy who sold him the printer. This guy is freaking harassing that poor guy that sold him the printer. This is harassment. More than 6 years now, sending him freaking admissions for $300,000 and $600,000, not to mention the $30,000 he returned. This is freaking harassment. Continuing this ridiculous, frivolous lawsuit for more than 6 years now. This is just absurd. I can't believe this. This Zavodnik guy needs to not only be kicked the hell out of America and sent back to the Ukraine, but he needs to be sued as well, not only against this guy for wrapping up courts for these frivolous, stupid BS lawsuits. Costello said, I had this huge weight, this financial and emotional weight for 6.5 years. Costello said, man, I feel so bad for this guy. Zavodnik, however, doesn't see it that way. A colleague of Zavodnik's, who's a pro litigant, legal jargon for someone who represents himself or herself in court, spoke on his behalf. So Jesse Clements, who said that he and Zavodnik are members of a group of pro-litigants whose purpose is to end Marion County judicial corruption, said the appeals court ruling to mean that he didn't have to get more than $30,000 from this poor printer seller was ridiculous, irrational, and opposed to the law. Unbelievable. So Zavodnik is likely going to be asking for a rehearing on this, Clements said. Of course he's not done with it. This is such bogus crap. Costello said, I've had enough. I don't need him in my life anymore. But the case is not over. The appeals court ordered the trial court to hold a hearing to determine whether the case should be dismissed based on Zavodnik's repeated, flagrant, and continuing failure to comply with Indiana's rules and procedure. That hearing won't be held before Edens, the special judge from Boone County. He, like many others before him, basically recused himself from this, and I don't blame him. A special judge, Christopher Burnham of Morgan County, is now on the case. Man, this is just unbelievable. Unfreaking believable. So what happens here, guys, is if I go now and I Google this freaking Ukraine guy's name, who now lives in the States, I want you guys to take a look at this. This was an article almost 2 years ago in October of 2014 from the USA Today. So in this article on USA Today, it says an Indianapolis man who has filed more than 120 lawsuits since 2008 got a stern message this week from the Indiana Supreme Court. Enough is enough, the justices told him. And they issued today, the state's high court, an order issued today, called Zavodnik a prolific, abusive litigant and put him on notice. In the unanimous ruling, the 5 justices warned the Ukraine-born U.S. citizen that he can expect further abusive litigation practices to be met with appropriate sanctions and restrictions. However, this was almost 2 years ago, and he still hasn't stopped. He still hasn't learned his lesson. Court records show that Zavodnik, now this is back in October of 2014, had filed more than 123 civil lawsuits in Marion and surrounding counties since 2008. Most are revolved around internet sales and purchases gone bad. He's also a party to 34 cases before the Indiana Court of Appeals, including 23 requesting the appointment of special judges to hear his complaint because of previous tiffs with judges handling those cases. So all this guy is doing is trying to rip off innocent people like the Costello guy who sold him a $40 printer and collect ridiculous amounts of money. And when the judge throws out his case because it's ridiculous and frivolous, he gets mad and says that there was some kind of corrupt, he filed some kind of complaint saying that the judge was biased against him in some way and appeals it. And he came again to the States in 1987. Now listen to this guy here. On Wednesday, this was back in 2014, Zavodnik told the Star he disagrees with the opinion and added, "I am not going to change my ways. Everything in that opinion is a lie. There is nothing I can do about it because the whole game isn't fair. They pretty much closed the door to courts to me in the state. Where can I go now where a judge won't mistreat me? Oh, poor little me." So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and leave you guys this article. I'll have the links to both of these articles from the Indianapolis Star and the USA Today in the description down below. But this absolutely is one of these news stories that pisses me off. This guy Zavodnik, if you ask me, needs to be kicked out of the USA, or needs to at least be fined heavily for wasting our court's time on these frivolous BS lawsuits where he's just trying to collect tens of thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars over stupid crap like a $40 printer sold on Craigslist. When you buy something on Craigslist, there's no guarantee that whatever you're buying is going to work. That's a chance you take by buying something used. What's he going to do now? Start buying crap at yard sales and filing $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 lawsuits against 25-cent items he buys at yard sales? I mean, it would be no more ridiculous. When you buy something used on Craigslist at a yard sale, whatever, there is no guarantee that that item is going to work as it would have had you bought it new. So, I don't know. So guys, I think this is one of the most absurd news stories I've ever read in my entire life. I don't know that I've ever read a news story this ridiculous. So I want to know what you guys have to say about this story. Take a look at what I've said. Take a look at the stories below and the links below if you want to read more about it. And I'm sure you can Google this guy and Google and get all kinds of more information. But to be honest, reading about this Zavodnik guy, quite frankly, makes me feel ill to my stomach. This is sickening. I want to know what you guys have to say about this. Please put it down in the comments below. Be sure you rate my video. This is Zaxter99. We'll see you in the next video, everybody. Take care.